Everyone, and welcome back to the GCSE Maths series. Today, we're going to be looking at ratio and how to answer ratio questions. So, let's just get straight into the questions. So, there are green sweets and yellow sweets. The ratio of green sweets to yellow sweets is 7 to 5. So, the first thing you want to do is do a rate. Actually, I like black. Green sweets to yellow sweets. The ratio is 7 to 5. Okay, what does this actually mean? So, this means for every 7 sweets in a bag, there will also be 5 yellow sweets. So we can call this 7 parts, and this 5 parts. And 5 parts to 7 parts literally just means 7 sweets to 5 sweets. So just imagine them in a bag. For every 7 green sweets, we get 5 yellow sweets. And that is how the order is going to be. So that means that when we get another 7 and another 5, that means there'll be 14 green sweets to 10 yellow sweets. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So now, if we were to think about it, what fraction of the sweets are green? Okay, what is a fraction made of? Yeah? A numerator over a denominator. So let's say in this bag, what is the total number of sweets we have as parts? How many parts do we have? We have 12 parts. 7 plus 5, right? So the fraction of the sweets that are green is obviously going to be the 7 parts over our total 12 parts. So 7 parts over our 12 parts. Okay, now this means the fraction is 7 over 12. Alright, move on to the second question. At a concert, the ratio of teenagers to adults is 4 to 1. I remember we read it respectively, which means the one that comes first, teenagers, will be the one we start with. So teenagers have got 4 parts, adults have got 1 part. And remember, in this case, we have a total of 5 parts. Okay, so the teenagers, so this part, 4 parts, are either boys or girls. The ratio of girls to boys, so I've realistically wrote that in the wrong way, but nothing the rubber can't fix. We're gonna do girls to boys, and the ratio is 5 to 3. Okay, so what fraction of all the people at the concert are girls? Okay, so this is an extra step to this question, but similar sort of concept. Let's first work out what is the fraction of girls out of the teenagers. So this is the teenager section. Now, let's do this. So for every 5 girls, there is 3 boys. So for every 5 parts, there's 3 parts boys. Okay, the total number of parts, if you guys remember, is 5 plus 8, and the number of girls is 5 parts. So this is the girls out of the teenagers. So yeah, 5 out of 8 of the teenagers are going to be girls. So this 5 out of 8 has to be used to work out the fraction of girls at the concert. So now this is used to represent. So this is used to represent, this box here is used to represent the ratio between teenagers and adults. Now obviously all the girls come from this teenager section. So we have to assume that it follows the pattern of 4 parts to 1 part. So the total number of teenagers in this instance is 4 parts out of 5 parts, right? So this is the amount of teenagers at the concert. And now remember, we've just worked out that 5/8 of these teenagers are going to be girls. So the way we work out how many girls are at the concert is we have our 5/8 and we times it by our 4/5 and we get 20 over 40, which simplifies down to a half. So that means that out of all of the people at the concert, 50% or 1/2 of these people are girls. And remember, these girls come from the teenage section, and we work from our original teenage section to see how many of the girls are there, and we work up to the teenagers to adults ratio, and then use it to times through to work out the number of girls or the fraction of the number of girls at the concert. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I know it's probably a bit chunky, but it's one of them things we just have to rewind and watch again and just understand the difference between parts and what represents what. But the more practice we do, as in always in maths, you'll get better at it. So let's move on to the next question. This is a similar example to the one before. The ratio of coaches to players is 1 to 8. All of the players are either from Team A or Team B. The ratio of Team A players to Team B players is 4 to 3. What fraction of all the people on the team are Team A players? And I think this is supposed to mean coaches. Because, yeah, reading the question, that makes more sense. So what fraction of all the people on the coach are Team A players? So coaches, they're not obviously players. So the Team A to Team B, it comes from here. It comes from the players side of the ratio. So we have our A to B ratio now here. So this becomes 4 to 3, because remember we read it. This comes first, so this first number is underneath that one. So this is our ratio of Team A to Team B players. And we want to work out what fraction of all the people on the coach are Team A players. So there's total of 7 parts, 4 parts plus 3 parts. So out of 7, 4/7 of the players, 4/7 of the players are Team A. Right? Out of the players only. But remember, on this coach, it's not only the players that are there, it's also the coaches. So now we use this ratio here to work out the coach to player fractions, right? So out of this, 8/9, because the total number of parts is 9, so that's our denominator, and the players is 8 parts, that's our numerator. 8/9 is our ratio or our fraction. It's our fraction of the ratio for how many players compared to coaches there are on the bus. So now we times these two fractions together as we did in the previous example, and we get 32 over 63, which cannot be simplified. That is our final answer. That is the fraction of players on the coach, which are Team A. Okay, moving on to question 4. The ratio of cats to dogs at a shelter is 3 to 5. 40% of the dogs are puppies. So cats to dogs is like that. Then 40% of our dogs are puppies. And what is 40% as a fraction? 4 out of 10. Because I should have done this in another step, because you can write this as 40 over 100 if you think about its percentages. Divide both sides, top and bottom by 10, get 4 over 10. Which means that 4 out of 10 of these dogs are puppies, right? So this is our first ratio fraction that we can have. And you know what? Let's work backwards. So if 4 out of 10 are puppies, let's say not puppies. And that's supposed to, MP stands for not puppies, right? Not puppies. And to make this equal to 1, this has to be 6 out of 10. So if we look at this as our first ratio, that's going to be 4 out of 10 to 6 out of 10. So the 4 out of 10 is our, this actually should be written as 4 to 6 or 2 to 3 better. So the total number of parts here is going to be 5. So 2/5 is going to be our fraction for the number of puppies to the number of not puppies we have as dogs. And remember that the whole ratio is 3 to 5. So now we've worked out that 2/5 of the dogs we do have in the shelter are going to be puppies. 2/5 of those dogs, compared to the whole ratio of cats to dogs. Remember, we have 5/8 now dogs to cats, right? 5/8 of the animals we have are dogs, and 2/5 of that 5/8 is going to be our puppies. So 2/5 times by our 5/8 is going to be 10 over 40, simplifies to a quarter. So you can say that 1/4 of the animals that we have at this shelter are going to be puppies. Okay, that's going to conclude today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. As always, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.